Hello, search here from the backyard driving range. Oh, we have a question that came in, and this one is from Paul Dolan. And Paul says, I have been watching your videos for several years now. The video that starts off with you swinging in your black hat, yellow shirt, and black pants, and it has Swing Surgeon Productions on the screen. You always talk about a vertical swing, 12 o'clock swing, and no cocking of the wrist. As I look at this swing in your video, you clearly have a 45-degree angle in your swing. It is not vertical to the ground. Your waist, your wrists are cocked also. Not as much as the pros do, but I still cock somewhat. I don't see how one can have any power in the swing unless there is some angle on the backswing. Watch your swing on that video I mentioned above. Please clear this up for me. Okay. So I guess the basic issue is that Paul is trying to get to here is really about wrist cock. And he feels that wrist cock has to happen on the backswing. Okay, let's go over this. This might be about the 20th time that I have or more that I've done this on dailies. But I'll keep doing it because it's a very confusing issue. And it's mainly confusing because why? Just about everything in the peak performance golf swing is counter to what is the basic tenets of overall golf instruction, right? I like to use the street picture. You got a sidewalk on one side and you got a sidewalk on the other. All right? 99% of basic golf instruction is over there, and peak performance is over here. Why is that? Do I want to be radical? No. It's just because that's the way it ended up. Why? Because the predominance of all golf instruction being taught is based on opinion, supposition, speculation, trial and error. Just because you can do it doesn't mean it's absolutely right or the best way. Or a better way if you didn't want to use the word best. And the key is how did I get into this? Well, it started with me trying to get rid of a pain in my lower back over here. And I found that one day I thought about it and I said I could take a swing and get to there and there's no pain. As soon as I get that big turn and went to parallel, it was like a knife stuck in me. So I just said, well, hey, anybody that's smart's going to say if I can get to here and it doesn't hurt and I go there and it hurts, don't go there anymore. So I learned that position. I started hitting golf balls. And in 3 days I hit balls and my pain was gone. It was literally gone. And I mean, I used to have it every day. I ate ibuprofens like M&Ms. I stretched every day. I'd even lay towels on the ground on the course and get down on the ground and put my feet up like this and stretch my back and reach down and touch my toes and all these other things. And the pain never went away except December, January, and February. Wow. And it came right back in March. Well, what does that tell me? Well, when I stopped playing and practicing, the pain went away. And as soon as I came back and started playing and practicing and started hurting, it had to be golf. It had to be my swing. So that's when I started figuring this thing out about, like here is okay, there hurts, don't go there. Well, at that point I started asking questions. What has to happen? Why does it happen? How do you make it happen? That is, swinging a golf club to hit a golf ball to make it go where I want it to go, the way I want it to go. Okay? By the way I mean the flight pattern. All right? In terms of its height and its shape. Or no shape, dead straight. So, because I don't have a great background in science, I went and found experts. And ironically, the first expert I found me. In my first book that I wrote, Golf Plain and Simple, which I think was published around 1985 or something, 86, I talked a lot in here about trying to use your body the way it feels the proper and best and most consistent and most efficient way to swing a golf club where you feel the less stress and strain. Dr. Ned Armstrong called me, and ironically, I was working on the west side of Atlanta in Kennesaw, Georgia, at Pine Tree Country Club, and Dr. Armstrong was in Alpharetta on the other side. So I was off 77, he was off of 85. So by the way the bird flies, we were probably no more than 20, 25 miles apart. And he came over one day and started talking to me. And that was, I guess, the beginning of my resurrection into really thinking about and studying the swing. He came over and he said, I had so many things in my book that resonated with him. And that I was the first pro he's ever seen that seemed to think how the body moves and is designed to move has a big part in hitting a golf ball. So, in fact, Dr. Armstrong is writing a book called A 30-Degree Angle. Dr. Armstrong is the one who helped me figure out the wide knees outward pressure to maintain the knees. Because I actually said in that book, in my first book where I actually talked about a parallel swing and big 90-degree turn in parallel, I said, but if while you're going there and you start to lose your spine angle, that's it. You cannot swing past where you lose your spine angle. So I was already on my own getting into thinking about how important it was to maintain angles. All right? And I was rather vertical I was still vertical at that time. I was right up nice and high. Okay? So I was vertical, but I was just like what everybody taught me through all my years of playing golf. And I mean, I learned myself. And in fact, realistically, when I was an amateur, I actually had a 3/4 swing. And why did I go long? Because when I turned pro, I felt like I needed to get longer. And so I went to a bigger turn and a bigger backswing. And what I got was a aching back. And not long enough to make a difference. And I certainly believe when I think back on it, I didn't hit the ball as consistently solid and as straight as I used to, which I got back when I found the swing. So I was already going on my own way. Dr. Armstrong was my first one that really started to talk to me about the actual anatomical design of the body and setting up and swinging within that design. I'm getting to the angles thing now. I've already mentioned it once about maintaining your spine angle. From there I went on, when I moved to Harbor Town Golf Links in Hilton Head, I eventually ran into my physics person, Henry Rifle, mathematician, engineer, just all around brilliant gentleman, and he was about a 1 to 3 handicap for most of his life. And he was a little guy, a really little guy, probably only about 5'5", 140 pounds. And he, in his heyday, as he told me, had a big, long John Daly type swing and hit the ball really, really, really far for a little guy his age. I mean, excuse me, his size. And so when I first brought him my thoughts about the 3/4 limited turn, he was very skeptical about it. I gave him my 5 reasons why parallels are a lie. Don't have time to go into that here now. And he thought about it. And he said, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. He called me that night, the day I told him, and set up an appointment with me the next morning in my office at 7 o'clock before my lessons. And he walked in my office and just looked me straight in the eye and said, I thought about it. You're right. 3/4 is better. Not only for the physics, but also for the physiology. All right? So let's get back and really talk about the angles that Paul's asking about. Everybody thinks wrist cock, and that the wrists cock at impact. They cock at the top, and that certain things happen. Just like baseball players. I was watching Home Run Derby one time, and Hank Aaron was smacking home runs, and the announcer said, look at how he snaps his wrist at impact. You don't snap your wrist. Your wrists are limp and limber. They got a lot of motion, shall we say, horizontally. It's vertically they don't have very much. They can't go up very much this way, but they can slap around like that. So the key is if you cock your wrist, basically all you're having is horizontal flip over. And so what does the baseball player do when he swings? When they swing and extend their arms out, what are their arms doing? The bat, they're just rolling their arms. They're not snapping it with their wrists. You can't hit home runs with your wrists. You can't hit golf shots just standing here and going like this and flipping your wrist. It's your body has to have a reasonable amount of turn, but it's a controlled degree of rotation of your arms. Power comes from rotating your arms. And guess what? The wrists are part of that segment of what makes up the arm. All right, so now let's watch this. I've done this a number of times. We're standing here at address. I guess maybe that's the 45-degree angle that Paul was talking about. If I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to put my thumb on my wrist right here. I'm going to put my middle finger on the golf club right here. I'm going to take the club. I'm going to start from here. As we know, rotate. Right? It's all about rotating, like shaking hands with somebody. Right? The arm is connected to the shoulder and the ball and socket joint. So here's the socket, there's the ball, the whole system rotates. So from the tip of my finger to the top of my arm, it's all rotating. And when I put my 2 arms together, they rotate absolutely exactly opposite each other, or as can be called, diametrically opposed. So whatever one side does, the other one's doing the exact opposite. Okay? So back to this. Hands here. All right? I take it back to there. All right? I'm going to go to this way now. I take it back to there. From there, I was in the catcher's mitt right here. I'm over the toe line. Once you're over the toe line, there's no more turn. It's all lift. All right? I'll show you this view again. I turn to the toe line, and then it's all lift. Come up here. Notice what? No change in this angle. All right? Maybe there's a little down cock when I transition the lower body going this way. He's stretching all the muscles with the upper body, because at some point the lower body starts while the upper body's still turning back, and when all of these forces that way hit this force, and there's got to be a winner. The winner we want to be that it hits the hands, the arms, the hands of the club, and it pulls them down to start chasing this side, the lower side, okay? So there might be just a little bit, but it's a slight hinging, but not cocking. If your wrist change, they will either, if they change from a nice flat wrist at address, if they change anyway, they're going to either cock or arch. Either way, you're losing strength. You're getting your arms into your forearm, your hands and your forearm out of dynamic balance. Your muscle lengths are changing, so therefore you're losing the elasticity you had that was stretched to now really snap in the other direction. So it's here and then straight down. And that comes straight down from there like this. And then at the last, as you're coming into impact, both hands and arms just rotate the club to square. It's a rotation of the entire arm from the tips of the fingers to the shoulders and the ball and socket joint. And then from there, but now, he did say something about I had a cocked wrist. Let's watch on this part. Again, I get it from here. Look what I had addressed. This one's relatively flat. This one's relatively flat. Until I start the rotation, guess what? This one gets even more dynamically straighter, so to speak, and activated. But guess what this one does? The right one is actually now cocked. It stays cocked all the way to the top. And when I come down in the transition, it stays cocked and gets even more cocked. All right? Until we start what? The rotation. And guess what? When we get back to impact, they're both relatively dead straight. Now in today's golf, with the rotational swing, they want that wrist cocked and they want it to stay cocked all the way through impact. That's almost effectively like pushing the club through the ball. But when you're turning really hard and you got some strength, you can push it, and then they finally let their arms, swing up and wrap around their body. So just like the best baseball players, they all get in here and they stretch their arms out. I have a picture of a cricket player when in all the uniform, they got the big pads on their legs and everything else, and I got a picture of a cricket player hitting a ball, and when he hits it right here, he's exactly like this. Arms dead straight. It's rotation. So, and then what? As I said, the right wrist is cocked all the way up, coming into impact, and it straightens out to right there. And guess what happens in the forward swing? Then what? The wrist that was flat at address all the way to the top in impact now becomes cupped, and the wrist that was cupped in the backswing to just before impact now becomes the straight wrist. For every action, there's a reaction, and that one becomes straight, and now the left wrist, or the upper hand on the club, the wrist becomes cupped all the way up to the top until you recoil and relax. All right, so there is an equal and opposite reaction here. But the key is it's rotation. We have minimal body rotation to swing the arms faster. Centrifugal force, rock on the end of a string. Symbolically, this is the rock, this is the string. These are the strings. And it's wrist rotation. I do everything I physically and mentally can do, that once I start in this position, I do everything I can to feel like my from takeaway to the top and on the way down, this wrist never changes angle. I don't want to ever see this angle in here get changed. Now what I have here really is a 45-degree angle. Once I start here and I get to there and I start lifting, there's the angle, and there's 12 o'clock. Okay? So hopefully this explains it. We're talking about wrist rotation. We get our power from keeping our body still, our points consistent, that they never change, and we swing the rock on the end of the strings, and we have to keep our body straight so that the rock will return exactly to where it started. Because if we're doing any kind of movement and actually risk breaking and everything else is shortening the string, we have to get that string back to where it was at start. Okay? So hopefully this explains it. And the whole thing is we got to just remember, basically 99% plus of the world's on that side of the street, and peak performance is on that side of the street. Okay? So hopefully this explains everything, and it's going to help you understand this, that good wrist action is no wrist action. And if you want to hit it more solid straight, potentially longer, consistently, fewer angles the better. That's it for the search for today, and I'll be talking to y'all again soon.